My name is Dan Round and I'm a psychotherapist at the retreat in York. And this is Roseanne. Unfortunately, because of the lockdown, we weren't able to deliver a workshop that we wanted to, which was called What is an Eating Disorder? A Journey with a Therapist and a Client. But we have been talking to people who have been finding this time difficult and exploring what helps and what works. And what we've done is created a blog of our 7 top tips that we hope you and maybe your friends and family might find helpful.
Tip number 1. Coping in your current environment. Now, obviously everyone's situation is different, but a lot of people are at home a lot more than they usually would be, and that can be quite triggering for a lot of people. So have a think about what is in your home that is quite triggering for you. Is it that there are mirrors around? Is it that there are scales that are easily accessible? And how can you manage that? So could you ask someone to hide the scales, or could you turn the mirror around? What will help you to feel more relaxed in your own environment? And equally, the kitchen can be quite an anxiety-provoking place for people who struggle with disordered eating. So could you maybe put your favourite music on whilst you're in there? Or could you put a poster up? It doesn't take away all that anxiety, but it might help to manage the environment just to make it feel a little bit more comfortable. And finally, if you are living with others, could you have a conversation with them about how you and they can make that environment more manageable for you? So could it be that you have a conversation about what's discussed at the dinner table, or anything that you might feel will help you to be able to cope during this current situation?
So top tip 2, how do you manage exercise? So the government has given us some guidelines and asked us to go out once a day and to exercise for up to an hour. For some of us, this might be very difficult, especially if your exercise is driven or obsessive, or perhaps even if done in secret. I've been having a few conversations with people about this, and we like the idea of, instead of using the word exercise, but the idea of activity. Find something that you enjoy, or perhaps feel connected to either yourself or other people. Now, as you can see, I'm in some woods here, and for me personally, I love to be out in nature, in fact walking. So I'm going to invite you to find an activity that you enjoy that helps you connect to yourself and other people and the environment around you.
So tip number 3, managing shopping. It can be quite difficult at the moment with stores being quite busy and with not everything being in the shop that you might want. I think the first thing is, if you are going shopping yourself, to do yourself a little shopping list so that you're able to go in, get what you need, and then come out of the supermarket. It might be quite helpful to try and work out what times are quieter within that supermarket that you go to, just so that it helps to ease your anxiety levels, that you're not having to queue for a long time and kind of worry too much about going in. And the other thing is how to deal with something if it's not there in the supermarket. And that can be really difficult. And I think it's really good to just have a think about that before you go in. If something's not there, how will I cope with it? It might be that at that moment, just maybe just trying to calm yourself down, taking a deep breath and just thinking, okay, it's not here, what can I do next? It might help to maybe play some music, put your earphones in whilst you're shopping. That might be something useful for you. But if you're not able to go to a supermarket, or if other people are shopping for you, I think it's really important to have that conversation if it's something that you think you will struggle with. And just, explaining what it is that you struggle with. It might be that there's certain foods that feel safer for you. And kind of having that conversation with someone is probably the best way to go about it. You might feel quite anxious at this time, and that's understandable. And so I think as much as you can, try and help yourself to ease that anxiety, but also take into account that at this time, sometimes we will feel a little bit more anxious.
Top tip 4. Cooking and mealtimes can be difficult for anyone, whether you're living alone or whether you're living with other people. My advice is that you don't have to cope with this on your own. It's okay to ask for help. For some people who I'm talking to in therapy, they're finding their own ways to manage this, coming up with their own plans, and they're sharing these plans with other people. Some people are finding it really helpful to think about what they eat and when they eat it, and share that with people who you know you can trust, who are in your network. My advice at this time is try not to eat alone. Some people I know are using video or telephone to connect to people while they're eating, or perhaps even after, if that's a difficult time for you as well. Whatever it is, have that plan and stick to it, and let other people support you in that. But most of all, it's okay to ask for help.
So tip number 5 is about setting a structure and a routine. So obviously many people's routine and structure has changed dramatically over the past few weeks. And so it's really important to try and set yourself a routine and get that structure going. So one thing that might help is to make sure, if you can, that you're going to bed at a similar time each day, and that you're getting up at a similar time, and that just really helps to set that structure. Also, if you feel this would be helpful, to set the times of the day in which you're having your meals, so that it's slightly less anxiety provoking and you know when you're going to be having those meals. It might be that you make yourself a timetable of the week so that you know what you're doing. You've kind of got a bit more of a structure in your head, and that it can help you to feel a bit more energized, really, rather than having to think, well, what am I going to do next? But it's also important that, we have to be a little bit flexible. And this isn't about having a completely fixed routine, but at least having familiar things every day that you do that can help you to feel more relaxed and comfortable when a lot of things seem kind of unstructured and out of sync a little bit at the moment.
Tip 6. Managing anxiety and worrying. Perhaps you've noticed more recently you've been more anxious, or you've been worrying about your friends, your loved ones, your work, the worst case scenario. It is understandable. A lot of people, whether they have an eating disorder or not, are worrying perhaps more than usual. It is very difficult for people who have problems around eating to do things that are relaxing or enjoyable. So my Dan challenge for you as you think about these next days and weeks is, are you doing anything that is enjoyable, is restful? Why don't you explore learning a new hobby? Perhaps doing something that you used to do that you don't do now, or perhaps finding a new way to relax and do something that is either fun or enjoyable, either for yourself or with other people. Be safe, and I hope you find new ways to manage your anxiety and your worrying.
So finally, tip number 7, making sure that you're staying connected and asking for support if you need it. So it is quite a difficult time for people at the moment, and not being able to connect in the same way, like meeting up with people, is quite a challenge. We do advise that you still connect with people in other ways. So it might be that you send a letter to one of your friends and they can write back, or keep connected through social media, give them a phone call or a video call. Just any way in which you can stay connected with those around you. And the other thing, if you are with people at the moment, it might be quite important to just explain how you're feeling and express those difficulties and struggles that you might be facing at the moment, so that they have a bit more of an understanding. But the final thing is that if you are struggling, do reach out for support, whether that be speaking to a friend, to your GP or mental health professional, or whether it's contacting the BEATS helpline, so the UK's eating disorder charity, and speaking through with one of their advisors about the challenges you're facing. Whatever it is, make sure that you are asking for that support and seeking the help that you really do deserve.